Call it underrated, but this is easily one of the best singles released by a 2D group, in this case a 2D rock band, part of a project that, well, we may as well say that this project is no longer around. I'm talking about MEDICODE's self-titled CD, MEDICODE, that was released as part of the FlyME Project, the pioneer visual-kei project within the 2D music industry. So let's talk about this banger, because this is an amazing CD. Let's kick off this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge. I am your host Vanessa, and today we are going to talk about MEDICODE's self-titled CD, MEDICODE. Now, let's put the script away and let me talk about this amazing CD that not many people, or basically any people, know about. And this is so frustrating for me, because every time I talk about MEDICODE, I feel like I'm talking about something that maybe never happened, but I have the CD on my hand, so this really happened. Or when I talk with someone about this CD, people are like, what? Which project? I do not know what it is about. Did it really happen? Where can I get the music? Or basically, who was part of this project? There are always many questions about MEDICODE, about FlyME Project, and usually those go, I should say, unanswered for many people. A couple of years back, I created a whole video feature about the FlyME Project, the whole project that was launched in, let me check the date, because if I miss this one, it's going to be really bad. This was a project that was launched in 2015, alongside a multitude of other 2D music projects, and it was packed. That year was packed. You had Idolish7, Ensemble Stars, B Project, UMeidocast, Dear Vocalist. Everything was basically launching at the same time, and FlyME Project was also there. But among all these projects, only Dear Vocalist and FlyME Project were projects primarily focused on rock music. And what happened here with MEDICODE was that they went the extra mile. They were not just rock music, they were visual-kei rock music. And visual-kei rock music is a bit different, both in style and sound, because it takes influences from many things, going from the fashion to the music to the art. So it is a music genre that takes in a lot from outside to create a unique soundscape for the listener. Visual-kei tends to be, but it's not exclusively, dark music. Most people know visual-kei rock as being music from bands that perform in a darker sound or with darker lyrics, and they are quite expressive and intense in their fashion and makeup. But what happened because of this? The project launched with the idea of bringing real visual-kei music to the fans of 2D music, and they enlisted the help of real visual-kei artists, from lyricists to guitarists or producers. So this project had everything to be a hit and still be around. Unfortunately, as I'm talking to you, as you have noticed by this intro, basically it is a project that faded away in 2018, and Exit Tunes, which is to say Pony Canyon, hasn't said anything since then. The project is still with its social media channels on, not active. They aren't releasing any type of content since 2018, but they still have those handles available, and they are still, live, but still there's no information since 2018. So you can basically say that either this is a really long hiatus, or the project has really stopped, and Exit Tunes or Pony Canyon didn't even have the kindness to say to the fans that the project was ending, and that you should not put hopes into that. Regardless of that, the project launched with high hopes. The project enlisted artists within the visual-kei scene to help out with the music, and you had, in this case, LMC helping out with the music by MEDICODE in this self-titled CD. In the second CD, Gabby, it was the Aura, or basically Kei from the Aura, that was helping out with the music. In this case, we had IG from LMC helping out with the music for Karma, the leading track in this CD, and let me tell you, this was amazing. This was one of those times in which you are listening to something but you don't really know how to react. At least it was how I did. Why did I react like that? At the time, I'm talking about 2015, I was already a big fan of Soma Saito. Soma Saito is the voice of Komoli, is the voice of MEDICODE. And I was a really big fan already of Soma Saito, even before he was known, let's say. And it was only just a seiyuu that I actually was quite fond of because of his shenanigans in the 81 Produce radio show alongside Takuya Eguchi, which I was a big fan of back then, and Kotaro Nishiyama. I came across him and I started to follow his career, and I was only following, of course, the seiyuu work, which is to say the pure seiyuu work, the voicing of characters in anime series and games. And I was following that really almost religiously. I didn't miss anything, any small role that he did. I was there to watch and listen in case it was a drama CD. I was already following back then, but I was not that interested at all in the music. Honestly, I was not excited to listen to him singing because I had, and this was really in my head, I was under the assumption that with his voice that was a bit high back then, not so much right now, I was under the assumption that if he was going to sing, maybe my idea of him as a really good seiyuu was going to be shattered, because many of the seiyuu that I liked back then were not necessarily good singers, and I didn't want another one to be like that. And in a way, I was reluctant to even check the music that Soma Saito was starting to dip his feet in 2015. So I was not necessarily that curious, but then I saw visual-kei rock, and I'm a massive fan of visual-kei rock, with my favorite band being, of course, The Gazette. Also, I'm a big fan of Lynch and Nightmare. Nightmare because they were first exposed to me through Black Butler, the anime series, and in some way the Gazette as well. Lynch, I came across them as I was searching for other visual-kei rock bands that had a sound similar to what I liked. So I do have a core group of bands that I do love within this scene. Of course, I do listen to many more groups and bands within the visual-kei genre, but all pending or turning towards the darker side more so than the lighter side. I do not enjoy that type of visual-kei that is really bubbly and colorful. I'm more of the type that enjoys that black, strong and aggressive sound, at times even really emotional, more so than the happy-go-lucky and bubbly type of sound or even image. I was a big fan of Soma Saito, and on the other hand, visual-kei music, but I was really reluctant to check music by him because most of my favorite seiyus back then were not really good singers. They still aren't really good singers, but I still appreciate them a whole lot. But I am aware that when they sing, they are doing that for the fans. They aren't necessarily really good singers. So I was reluctant to listen to Soma Saito singing, and I came across Tsuki Pro, and then I fell in love with Solids, and it was at that time that I felt, well, I now need to check what he did with MEDICODE, because I'm enjoying what he is doing with Solids. And let me tell you, the first CD by Solids is really awful. But I did enjoy how he was singing. There was something as I hit play in this CD that made me think that I wanted to first watch this being performed live. 2, I wanted Soma Saito to have his own rock band. 3, either that or him making a solo debut. And 4, why weren't more people listening and supporting this project? Because this was bloody amazing, and I felt like I was alone in supporting this group because I didn't find anyone talking about FlyME Project. Everyone was on about Ensemble Stars, Idolish 7, Yumeiro. Of course, all these groups or all these franchises are really amazing. Some are no longer with us, but the others are really, and at the time every single one of those franchises was amazing and was doing really awesome things. but I always felt that FlyME Project really got the short hand of the stick. Not many people were talking about them. Maybe their timing was completely off and they ended up being stuck in a place that many people were like, well, I'm already supporting 3 or 4 new groups, I'm not going to support right now a band. So they ended up being a bit on the back burner for many people, and it is a pity, because I do look at this band, which they had so much potential. What you were seeing glimpses of with Gyroaxia in the From Argonavis franchise, I was seeing here fully with MEDICODE. If they had put the time into this project and the resources, this band MEDICODE could have taken off like Gyroaxia right now have done. Of course, Gyroaxia are going through a really weird phase in which the music label is not really promoting them as much, but still, MEDICODE could have had that opportunity to impress, be really a massive feature when you talk about visual-kei music in 2D music projects. And right now, when you talk about, well, the visual-kei 2D music projects that were there that are really awesome, and people say Visual Prison. For God's sake, there was another project way before that that was really leaving a mark and in many ways influencing the type of visual-kei music that you get in Visual Prison, Visual Karma, in Magatsu Note, and so on and so forth. We do right now have a lot of 2D music projects focused on visual-kei music, but back then this was the only one, and because it was the only one, the pioneer, no one was paying attention to it. It was really different, really disruptive. It wasn't happy-go-lucky like everyone likes in 2D music. And for many people, it went under the radar because also Soma Saito was not popular. And back then it was, let's say this with many quotation marks, rookie or a nobody in the voice acting industry that was helming this group. For me and for many people that were following Soma Saito's work up until then, it was way beyond that. It was not a rookie, it was not a nobody, especially not a nobody. But for many people, it was that mentality of, well, if he is not popular, I'm not even going to spend time with that CD. Well, they missed a lot because this now is regarded like, I would say, a gem within 2D music. Still incredibly underrated, but experiencing this as it was being released and experiencing these right now are two completely different things. MEDICODE's MEDICODE is a bloody amazing CD. Not only it was the pioneer CD bringing visual-kei to 2D music projects, but it was also the very first time that within a 2D music project or within a 2D music group, there was a singer performing screamo. That was the very first time. And that screamo comes in Karma, and it is performed by Soma Saito. And let me tell you, because Soma Saito doesn't sound like himself in here at all. And now you will say, well, that's because this is a CD from 2015, his voice has grown a bit older, he sounds a bit deeper right now, he sings in a completely different way. But no, it's not only that, but he also changed his singing style right now. But adding to that, why he sounds so different in MEDICODE's CDs, they were released in two completely different dates, 2015 and 2018, is basically the style. The whole voice tone is completely different. Here you are listening to Soma Saito performing in a style that is really well known among visual-kei rock bands. In case you do not know, tenor is the most common vocal range for men. Most men can reach high notes, not necessarily have a booming voice to begin with, that's rare in case you do not know, and really bassy voices are even rarer. So tenor is the most common voice tone around the world for men. As such, when you are listening to visual-kei rock, usually singers want to sound like someone else, they want to sound more intense, more aggressive, sometimes even really theatrical without sounding delicate, and what they do to their voice is basically to adapt their tone to a different one, and that's where that whole faux baritone comes from. A faux baritone is basically a singer that usually has a tenor voice that can perform in a slightly lower voice tone that is really a couple of octaves lower and thus getting into the natural baritone range. So it is basically a singer that can do faux baritone, is a singer that can emulate what a baritone sounds like when performing this style of music. Of course, right now you do have faux baritone used as a technique in other music genres, but it is something so intrinsically visual-kei rock that you cannot talk about visual-kei without mentioning that this is a music genre, or this is a movement with a really awesome set of music genres within it that also has the faux baritone singing style that makes all visual-kei singers sound like they have a low voice tone, when in reality that's not their voice tone at all. Soma Saito had to adapt himself singing in a lower voice tone, and it was the very first time that anyone got to listen to him first singing in faux baritone, then screamo, doing screamo basically within the song, and also singing really low. It is ridiculous how good he sounds like, and it is also quite impressive how different he sounds like from reality. It doesn't sound like him at all. That's something that I fully appreciate it, because most of the time SEIYUU do not change that much their performances from groups to groups or from projects to projects. But in this case, I was listening to Soma Saito as Tsubasa with solids, and he was singing in basically his natural singing tone. And in here with MEDICODE, it was like I had never heard before. It was not Soma Saito in here, it was really Komoli, and he really embodied that voice, that style, that whole vibe in this performance, and it carried over to Hollow, which is the B-side track. Both songs are incredibly amazing. Fast-paced, intense, dark, aggressive. It is really a muscular style of visual-kei rock. It is really, really awesome, and I've yet to listen to another 2D visual-kei rock music project to match the high quality that this CD had. With as little budget as it had, well, I can only guess that it had a really small budget, given how fast the project was shelved. But this is a really amazing CD. Most of the times I mention this as one of Soma Saito's highlights as a singer for 2D groups and bands, because he showed that he is a chameleon, and that is something that when he was still considered, let's say yet again with many quotation marks, a nobody, and was not popular at all. Many people didn't know who he was, what he did. They didn't even know that he was voicing characters in anime to begin with. So he arrived out of nowhere for many people, and he swooped everyone off their feet with this performance. It's one of those performances that if you were not his fan up until then, you started to be his fan from that point on. It is that amazing, it is that exciting, it is so high quality. The control that he had back then, right now, of course, it is ridiculous how much control Soma Saito has over his vocals, but in 2015, he had so much control with so little experience in 2D music. It was impressive, and going the extra mile to really become the character and showing that he knows how visual-kei is, that he appreciates visual-kei, and that he wanted to do the best for the character to be believable, the sound to connect with other people. It was something really akin to the work that he did in Zankyo no Terror, in which this is an anime series, of course, in which his performance is really different from what you would expect in anime series. It's more like a real TV drama. And in this case, this CD, MEDICODE, felt like you were listening really to a visual-kei rock band, not a CD trying to impersonate a visual-kei frontman, and the music basically being just a tie-up to sound okay. So, really high quality, the music itself. IG's LMC did an amazing job with Karma. This is a CD that is so consistent from Karma to Hollow. The energy never fades away, the tempo is always intense, the guitars are always shredding, the vocals are really booming, aggressive. This is a CD that is really amazing, and I look at it right now that I finally got my hands on a physical version of this CD. I look at this CD with a lot of fondness, because it started me off on a journey that I didn't want to get on, which was to follow Soma Saito's music. Imagine if I didn't follow Soma Saito's music. Right now the podcast didn't have at least, I should say, 40 or 50 episodes, because I do talk about Soma Saito a whole lot. But still, imagine what couldn't or wouldn't have happened if I didn't come across MEDICODE's MEDICODE. So this is a CD that has marked me in a big way, because I would be missing a lot of awesome performances by Soma Saito and even his solo career, because I was reluctant to check his music and I didn't want to break my image of him up until then. Actually, there was nothing to fear, it was all in my head, so he is an amazing singer, he was an amazing singer, and in MEDICODE, he showed everyone that there was no match when it came to a chameleon on the vocal end among male seiyuu. He was that unique and that amazing, really. These were my impressions about MEDICODE. Right now, I want to know what did you think about this CD, so let me get to the script again. Where is my script? Now tell me, have you listened to this album? And if you have, which is your favorite song and why? And if you are a fan of MEDICODE, do come to the comments, share your impressions, because I feel like I am alone on this one and not many people, not even Soma Saito's fans, fully appreciate MEDICODE and all the work that Soma Saito did here. And of course, let me know in the comments on YouTube, as well as on Spotify. You do have a place to leave your comments as well. And share with me albums you would give everything to experience again for the very first time. I will be picking some of your answers to create an episode covering those CDs. And remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of SEIYUU Lounge. And if you are listening to this episode on a podcast listening platform, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. Leaving a review is really simple and helps other people find this podcast and fall in love with male seiyuu artists and 2D groups. I'll return next week for another episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.